If you're a contractor or remodeler and you're using markup instead of margin to price out your jobs, you're probably undercharging and you don't even know it. In this video, I'm going to break down the #1 mistake contractors are making when pricing out their jobs and why they get to the end of the job and there's no profit left over. And then once I actually break down this mistake, I'm going to go through a simple calculator on how to price out your jobs correctly so you can actually make more money at the end of the day. I know I'm going to get into a lot of numbers in this video and I don't want you to get overwhelmed, so I actually created a calculator. And no, this is not an Excel spreadsheet where you get confused at all the different cells that are going on and everything's color-coded. This is an actual calculator that you can plug in all your costs and it'll show you how much you should be charging for each job and what your profit margins are on that particular job. Now, if you don't know who I am, I'm Liz Chism and I help contractors just like yourself make more money in their business and then keep more of that money. It's great to have all this revenue, but if you're not keeping any of it, it doesn't really do you any good. So for this video, I'm going to use really simple numbers so that way you don't get confused and you can follow along with this, and then you can use the calculator to apply it to your own business. So first of all, let's talk about the materials. So if I have materials for a job and it equals $5,000, and then I have employees and that's going to equal $5,000, my total costs are going to be $10,000. Is everyone with me here? So my materials are $5,000, my employees are $5,000, and then don't forget that this is also going to include the project manager. If you're acting as the project manager, you want to make sure that you include your hours in this. Let's say it's going to take you 10 hours to manage that job. You have some subs, you've got maybe a foreman on that job, but you're still actively handling the schedule, handling the budgeting, all of that. You need to make sure that you're calculating your costs right here as an employee. Now, when you go and hire a project manager for your job, you've already baked in that price, so you're not going to have to go raise your prices even more just to go hire somebody. You're going to already have the money. So when I hear contractors saying, I can't afford to hire such and such a person, it's like, oh, but you're not even charging enough in the first place to hire that person. So go and hire them because you're wearing all the hats, you're doing all the things, and you need to charge appropriately. You should not be working for free. #1, don't work for free. Add in your costs here. If it takes you 5 hours to design a job, add in 5 hours of design work and put your cost per hour at a very high rate. You are very skilled at what you do. You have quality work and you need to get paid accordingly. So we've got materials, we've got employees, we've got $10,000. Now here's where people go wrong. And this is why I'm going to switch to my red marker so you can see how it does not work. It logically makes sense and it's like, oh, that's right, but it does not work. At the end of the day, when you've still got to pay for overhead, you still have to have profit left over, you still take on all the risk. As a construction business, you should not be left broke at the end of every job. You should be profitable so then you can roll that money into the next job and roll that money into growth and roll that money into the resources you need to grow your business. But if you leave every single job with barely breaking even, then you're going to be up a creek without a paddle and you're really going to have a hard time growing your business. In fact, this is where a lot of contractors get stuck because they're like, well, I'm wearing all these hats and I'm the bottleneck, but I don't even have enough resources to go delegate anything. I don't have enough money to go hire somebody. I can't even hire a bookkeeper or an accountant or even just some basic advertising things to get more business because I'm wearing all the hats and I'm not making the money. So you fix this mistake and you can fix pretty much anything in your business. So this is what most people do. They take that $10,000 and they go, okay, I want a 50% margin on that. And so they mix up the terms here, but I'm just going to do this. 50% of $10,000 is $5,000. If I have 50% of $10,000, that's $5,000. So what they do is they add this together and they now charge the homeowner $15,000. Now, that $15,000 needs to cover material, needs to cover employees, needs to cover your trucks, your gas, your insurance, your taxes, your depreciation, your amortization, your own paycheck, and all the other overhead expenses that you have, all your software, all of the little things that add up, your cell phone, your computers, tools that you're going to buy. It's all coming from here. So guess what? You only have $5,000 to play around with, to spend, and that is why most contractors go broke, because they're left with this $15,000, but they're putting it into here. Now, here's the kicker. Let's say that this actually cost you $6,000 because you went over, and this cost you $6,000 because it went over. So you're now looking at only $3,000 left over for a job that's then got to pay for all the overhead and your salary, and therefore you're broke. So let's not do that. So if we're not going to charge that 50% and we're not going to end up with $15,000 and we don't want to be broke, what do we need to do? We actually need to use a term called gross profit margin. So this is actually taking the entire amount and saying the entire amount, half of that needs to go to materials and employees, and the other half of that needs to go to overhead and profit. So the way I like to explain it is just using my hand. Let's say that this is how much you charge the homeowner for the job. This amount needs to be for your cost of goods sold, your materials, your labor, the cost directly associated with that job. This is how much you need left over for overhead and for profit. So there's really 50% on one side and 50% on the other side. When you use this calculation, you're only using 3 fingers. So this is the amount for labor and for materials, and then this is what's left over, which means guess what? You don't have any profit left over. So what we actually have to do is we have to use gross profit margins. So if my total costs are $10,000, then I can easily just double this and make this $20,000. So that's how much I actually want to charge if I want to be charging for 50% gross profit margins, meaning I'm grossing 50% of the entire paycheck to profit. However, the math does not work well if you're going to do differently than just doubling it. So let's say that you are really charging this $15,000 and you want to get to this $20,000 and you don't want to make that jump in just one customer. You want to slowly inch it up and see where it is that you need to be and make sure that your systems aren't falling apart as you scale. Because when you're charging this amount of money, $20,000, let's say, for something that you used to charge $15,000, first of all, if you're going off of word of mouth and referrals, they're going to be like, what happened? Your price is just like skyrocketed all of a sudden. And people are going to get a little shocked. Now, if you're going cold advertising, people don't know what your prices are. And so therefore you can raise them pretty easily. However, if you are a company that has systems that feel really cheap and things are disorganized and people show up late and your guys aren't looking professional, your processes are all screwed up, people don't want to pay $20,000 for something that should only be $15,000. And so you want to make sure that your systems and processes align up with the amount that you're charging, so that way your value actually exceeds that amount. So people go, wow, I actually thought it was going to be way more than that. Yeah, sure, here's the money, no problem. Because of what you've built in trust and how you're interacting in your company and your systems and processes and how streamlined everything is. So if you want to target, let's say 40% gross profit margin, then we're going to do 40%, and that's actually going to be 1.67 multiple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the $10,000 and multiply it by 1.67, which is actually going to get me $16,700. I'm upping my pricing a little bit, so I'm making a little bit more money, but this is still not going to help me grow. If I'm a growth-minded contractor, I need to be charging growth-minded prices. So the next number we're going to look at is the 50%. And this one's obviously easy because we're just going to times it by 2, which is going to equal $20,000. Now, like I mentioned up here, when materials go over or employees, their labor hours go over and you have to pay for overtime just to get the job done, you're starting to eat into your profit. So I actually like to charge a little bit more than that 50% in order to just cover my bases and add that buffer in there so that way I'm not losing money at the end of the day. So I did the math for you. And so at 55%, we're going to actually multiply it by 2.22. So 55% is actually going to be a little bit more than doubling it. So that way this $10,000 is actually going to turn into $22,000 and some change. And so this is how you can start making more money in your business. First, you've got to do better math. Because if we do better math, then we can make more money. Like I mentioned, these are a lot of numbers, and if I've totally overwhelmed you, don't worry about it. Because remember, if you comment job cost below this video, I will send you a calculator that will literally do all this math for you. In fact, it's got a box where you can put the amount of materials that are in it. It has a box where you can put employees. If you work with subs, then it has a box to put the sub amount in it. It has a box for understanding, and then it has a box to actually break down all your costs so that way you know exactly where all the costs are coming from and how to actually understand your numbers. And guess what? All you got to do is plug in the numbers that you know, and it will spit you out what you should be charging the customer. So this is a very easy way for you to just, even in your head, go, okay, there's about this amount of materials, there's about this much labor, and this is how much I should be charging. I can guarantee you that you are undercharging, and you deserve, for the quality work that you do, to be charging more. If this video was helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with other contractors, and I'll see you in the next video.